morning, everybody. Today is the day we start our fast. And so what we want to do here is load up on protein, good fats, and fiber. And the reason we want to do that is we want to give our body as much feeling of being full and satisfied as possible. And we want to feed the microbiome that's healthy so that as we take away food from them, they go out and they start getting rid of the dead cells, the sick cells, the deformed cells, that they start producing new cells, especially stem cells, and that we start healing and detoxing in our body. So what we're going to have today is Brussels sprouts, carrots, almonds, andouille sausage, and some homemade sauerkraut, some hard-boiled eggs, and avocado. So let's start with just getting these Brussels sprouts ready. And I used to think I hated Brussels sprouts. You know, they got such a bad rap. And but I was watching a cooking show one day, and I don't remember who it was, but they were making them with bacon, and I was like, that actually looks kind of good. Let's just give it a try. So I went and got some Brussels sprouts, and I have been a fan ever since. I don't know why they got a bad rap. They have a nice flavor, kind of a nutty flavor. And I don't have to put them with any kind of bacon anymore, but bacon is definitely not a bad thing to add to them. And, you know, some of you might say, well, biblically, Penny, I thought we weren't supposed to eat pork. Well, that was true for the Israelites, but when Jesus came, you'll notice that I believe it's in Acts that Peter has a dream about all the foods that are bad, and they're in a sheet. And, you know, the voice from heaven says, eat. And he says, well, I've never eaten anything that is, you know, not healthy and good and kosher. And Jesus is, you know, you're not dirty from what you eat, but what comes out of you. So basically what he's saying is under the new covenant, we can eat anything we want. And in fact, we're told that if we're dining with others with different traditions, that we should not tempt them. So, for example, if you're having dinner with a Muslim, they don't eat pork, so I would not make pork. But if you go to somebody's house and they made for Christmas and they made a ham, there's absolutely no reason that you can't eat that ham. And, you know, you got to use judgment. It's called being polite. And the reason that Jesus says that it's not what we take in that defiles us, but what comes out of our mouth, is we want to watch profanity. We want to watch saying bad things about each other. I was watching Perry Stone last night, and he was talking about to be cautious this new year of not condemning others for their actions, or we may take on that spirit of whatever it is in their life. For example, you know, saying something bad about someone because they got divorced or whatever. We got to be careful of that, because what comes out of our mouth very well may happen to us. And so I thought that was pretty wise, because it's easy to get into gossip. It's easy to get into, well, that person said X, Y, Z, and I've done it. I'm not saying that I haven't. But I don't feel good when I'm done with it. The Holy Spirit convicts me and says, you know, you're better than that. And I am. I can do better than that. So, I have water on the stove, heating up to boil. And I'm going to steam my eggs for 12 minutes, and then I'm going to put them in ice water. And then we're going to start cooking up this other food. Now, let's talk a little. So, why do we want to eat protein and good fats going into a fast? Well, because we're trying to not only cleanse ourselves from toxins, which is, you know, the primary, but we also want to rebuild new cells. Well, what are like muscle cells made of? Muscle cells are made out of protein covered in a layer of fat. So we can give them protein and no fat, and we'll build big cells, but they won't have a good lining to carry them, and it'll be like a thin balloon, and they're easy to break and rupture. And so that leads to injury. So we don't want to do that. When you look at your brain is made primarily of fat and water. So we want to stay hydrated, and we want to give the body a lot of good fats. What are good fats? You've probably heard most of your life that saturated fats are bad. Well, saturated fats aren't bad. All saturated means is that every connecting point on that fat molecule is bound. And so actually, I would argue that's good because that cell can't be reactive, okay? And if it can't be reactive, then it's not going to do bad things in our body. So saturated fats would be any animal fats, fats from milk, from meat, from butter, okay? Then we get to monounsaturated fats. And what are those? Those are fats like you're going to find in avocado, and you're going to see in olive oil and coconut oil. And those are really good fats, and you can pretty much eat as much as you want of those, but there's one thing you need to be cautious of, and that's when you cook with them. And the reason is they're bound with, they have two chains attaching them. If you heat the heat too high, they can flip. And when they flip, then they become trans fats, and trans fats are really the bad fats. So olive oil has a lower temperature of smoke, and it also has a lower temperature of flipping. So if you're going to cook with olive oil, it needs to be something at a really low temperature. It's best to use olive oil in things like dressings and where you're using it cold. Coconut oil and avocado oil have a little bit higher smoke temperature, and that also means that it's going to flip potentially flip at a